I've received a letter from the honourable member for Greenway proposing that a definite matter of public importance be submitted to the House for discussion, namely the government's mismanagement of the NBN. I call upon those honourable members who approve of the proposed discussion to rise in their place. And I give the call to the member for Greenway.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, going into the 2007 election, Labor took a policy to the Australian people that spoke to a smart future in which the transformational power of ICT would be harnessed for the betterment of all Australians, irrespective of where they lived or worked. But it also spoke to a decade of policy failures under this Conservative government when it came to broadband, including where Telstra was privatised as a vertically integrated monopoly, entrenching the disincentives to invest and to engage in the best consumer welfare. They sold out the needs of rural and regional Australia, and we had a litany of half-baked proposals that left Australia languishing as a broadband backwater in a region that was investing in fibre as the best form of communications infrastructure. Mr Speaker, their hearts just weren't in it. And if you needed any proof that absolutely nothing has changed since that time, we only have to look at 8 long years of technological incompetence, cost blowouts, policy backflips to prove that their heads aren't in it either. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, nothing encapsulates proof of this more eloquently than the incoherent, rage-induced response by the minister opposite to the positive and well-received policy announcement by myself and the Labor leader recently to invest $2.4 billion expanding fibre access to up to 1.5 million additional premises currently relegated to a copper service under those opposite. And it's noteworthy, Mr Deputy Speaker, that up to 660,000 of these premises are in the regions. And I think this media release is a timely reminder of why the minister opposite shouldn't be allowed anywhere near a keyboard when he's in a bad mood. There was so much tension in this media release, you could have cut it with a butter knife, and even the shareholder minister, the Minister for Finance, wouldn't put his name on it. It was too much for even Senator Birmingham. But let's be clear, Mr Deputy Speaker, it's difficult to know where to start with this rant of a statement by the minister on the 17th of November, but I'll give it a go. I'm going to start at the end. Now, I want to remind members, this minister, along with those geniuses, Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott, abandoned fibre. They said their NBN would be a multi-technology mix incorporating copper and HFC. They said they'd deliver it quicker and cheaper. They said it would cost $29 billion and be finished by 2016. Well, the price tag today, Mr Deputy Speaker, is $57 billion and counting, and we've still got about 200,000 premises on copper around Australia that can't get the minimum broadband speeds required by law. And in September last year, in the most humiliating, wasteful, expensive policy backflip in the history of the Federation, this minister announced, wait for it, that they would go back and overbuild with fibre. So, after all that, Mr Deputy Speaker, what's the punchline? What's the punchline from this minister? What's his knockout blow? What's his knockout blow in his last line? Only the coalition can be trusted to deliver an upgraded NBN. Now, you can't make this up. Just let that anti-logic sink in just for a moment. It's the stuff of satire. It truly takes a unique lack of self-awareness to issue a statement like that. And if we follow this statement, Mr Deputy Speaker, to its illogical conclusion, the minister is arguing that only the Liberals can undertake a technology repair job that would not have even been needed if they weren't so incompetent to begin with. So let's just be clear about what that is. And look, well, I mentioned 660,000 premises in the region benefiting under Labor's policy. And we've got this other perler in the minister's media release. What Labor proposes here is more wasteful government spending of taxpayers' money. Let's be clear, and let's be clear. So Labor's original proposal, 93% of the fixed-line footprint having fibre, not copper. Millions of additional premises in regional Australia have been relegated to copper under this minister, and this minister's view is that to upgrade those people to fibre is wasteful. Well, I look forward, Mr Deputy Speaker, to every rural and regional member opposite coming in to back in their minister. And I look forward to the Liberal candidates for Eden Monaro and Macquarie and Gilmore and Corangamite all coming out to back in the minister. I think I'll be waiting a while. Mr Deputy Speaker. But I tell you what else in our announcement speaks to the Labor mission. Look, it's a modest one, but it makes a real change to the lives of children and their families. Because prior to COVID, we know from ABS data that there are around 55,000 households in Australia that didn't have any access to the internet for whatever reason. No access to the internet at home. And the first time we actually obtained this data was during lockdown, when we had remote learning going on, which became the norm for many of us. Now, we had schools, various state education departments, carriers and NBN Co. They intervened with mostly temporary solutions to help these students, and that's a good thing. And I've heard firsthand about the difference that assistance made. But I tell you what, Mr Deputy Speaker, it's still estimated that there's around 30,000 households around Australia where there is still no internet at home for whatever reason. So we have announced that Labor, working with NBN Co and the retailers, we will give free internet access for a year to those households. We'll do that while we work on a long-term model. In some cases, it might be quite bespoke, depending on the needs of those houses, because central to the Labor mission is equality of opportunity for everyone in Australia, regardless of your income, regardless of your postcode, regardless of what country you or your parents were born in, because that is the Labor mission. And we know, Mr Deputy Speaker, Australians are looking to the future. We want to be better prepared in the new normals that we have going forward, how we work, how we study, and it speaks to Australians needing to have the best, not the substandard, but the best. And we've got substandard under this government. We are ranked 59th in the world for average broadband speeds. We are ranked 32 out of 37 nations in the OECD. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, I would put money on the minister's script, what he's going to come and say in response to this. It's a document called Same Old Talking Points. Same old talking points. Consider this, Mr Deputy Speaker. The minister's response every time, just like he did only a couple of weeks ago, is to talk about 2013. Now, let's consider this. These tired old arguments have been systematically proven wrong over the past 8 years on every single count. And consider this, Mr Deputy Speaker. We have Labor talking about the future and making it better. And all this government can do is talk about the past. Talk about the past, but neglecting to mention all of their failures. We are talking about a future narrative here, how to make this national piece of utility infrastructure better for our needs in the post-COVID world. So it's very clear, Mr Deputy Speaker, that COVID has demonstrated that reliable, quality, accessible high-speed internet is not a luxury or a nice-to-have. And we said this all along. It is essential 21st century economic infrastructure. A future made in Australia requires the best quality communications infrastructure. Optical fibre is the right technology to shape our future, and we said this all along. Do it once, do it right, and do it with fibre. It's always been the right technology. And it's not just about speeds. It's about our national story and asserting the kind of country we aspire to be. Because I tell you what, Mr Deputy Speaker, if Labor wants to be a leader in the digital industrial century, not just a participant, we have to do better. That is our aspiration, a future made in Australia, a future shaped by the best quality ICT. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, we've known all along that the NBN is a critical piece of national infrastructure. But this tired, decade-old Liberal National Party can't be trusted when it comes to technology. They always get the big calls wrong, on technology, just as they get it wrong in other portfolio areas, including energy. They always get it wrong. For them, it's always about short-term politics and never about the long-term progress of this country. That's why, Mr Deputy Speaker, only Labor can deliver a better NBN and be trusted to shape our future the way it should be.
Members' time has expired, and I call the Minister for Communications.
I do thank the Deputy Speaker for the call, and I want to start with an area where there is, I think, agreement between the government and the opposition, and that agreement concerns the fact that what the pandemic demonstrated more than ever is that people really valued having reliable, high-quality broadband. Overnight, millions of us moved to working and studying from home, and we really needed a good broadband connection to get through that